Good afternoon, my name is Brandon Davies. My presentation is on Thomas Jefferson. This is for my History 131 class at Johnston Community College. My instructor is Miss Montcastle. Today we're going to talk about Thomas Jefferson. Some of Thomas Jefferson's accomplishments that we're going to talk about is he was a founding father of the United States. He was also a member of our Second Continental Congress. He was one of the authors of the Declaration of Independence. He served as a diplomat to France, Secretary of State, a Vice President, and then finally the President of the United States. Thomas Jefferson was born April 13, 1973 in Virginia to Peter Jefferson and Jane Randolph. Jane Randolph was the daughter of a ship's captain, and that her family was wealthy and pretty prominent in the times and in the area. Thomas Jefferson was the oldest of 8 children. Or the oldest boy of 8 children. His father, Peter Jefferson, was a planter and a surveyor, and upon marrying Jane Rudolph, Jane's father gave Peter, Thomas's father, a bunch of land and some slaves that Thomas Jefferson later inherited. Thomas Jefferson enjoyed reading. He went to the University of William and Mary in Virginia, where he studied mathematics, English, enjoyed reading, and enjoyed the law. He's one of our founding fathers. He served in the Second Continental Congress, where the Second Continental Congress appointed him to be the author of the Declaration of Independence. Thomas Jefferson actually wrote the first draft of the Declaration of Independence at only 33 years old. In the Declaration of Independence, one of the big things that Thomas Jefferson wanted to instill upon everybody is that everybody, all citizens, had the right to freely pursue life, liberty, and happiness. He served as a Secretary of State under George Washington after he returned from serving as a diplomat to France. As a diplomat to France, historians have found that there's not too much that he did that was noteworthy. He just enjoyed the culture and enjoyed his time that he spent in France. President George Washington appointed him as Secretary of State. As a Secretary of State, him and Alexander Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton was the Secretary of Treasury, Jefferson and Hamilton had odds over the forming of a national bank. Thomas Jefferson didn't believe that the Constitution and Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights afforded the government to form a national bank. And him and Hamilton went back and forth over it and disagreed adamantly about it. And Thomas Jefferson ended up resigning as Secretary of State. He told President Washington that there were 2 party lines being formed and that was going to be detrimental to the United States. He then served as Vice President under John Adams. It was an election that he ran for president and lost to John Adams and then was made vice president. And as vice president, Jefferson disagreed with President Adams on the Alien and Sedition Acts. The Alien and Sedition Acts made it unlawful for immigrants to come to the United States. It banned the freedom of press, made it against the law to boycott or to demonstrate against the government. And in doing so, he formed the Kentucky and Virginia Resolution. And in the Kentucky and Virginia Resolution, it put back the power to the states, that the states had the power over their government, that the federal government should not. And it started Kentucky and Virginia to dissolve their union. Didn't happen. That was the start of it. And it also sparked the bipartisan parties between the Federalist and the Democratic Republican parties. As President of the United States, he was the 3rd president. Some of his major accomplishments were the Louisiana Purchase. He bought the Louisiana territories for $15 million from France, which was a big piece of property, and added quite a bit of mass to the United States. He sent Lewis and Clark out on an expedition to map and survey the West and to bring them to look at bringing it into the United States as well. As president, he had issues with slavery. Thomas Jefferson owned 600 slaves over the course of his lifetime, but even as a slave owner, he opposed slavery and wanted all men to be free. Thomas Jefferson's got some controversy with a slave known as Sally Hemings. Sally Hemings was the daughter of a slave that he received from the Randolphs, his father-in-law. She was a light-skinned slave. They say she was very attractive. And when Thomas Jefferson's wife passed, Sally Hemings helped raise his two daughters. In 1997, there was some DNA testing done that showed that Eston Hemings, which is the son of Sally Hemings, was actually fathered by Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson passed away July 4th, 1826, 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of the Independence. Some of Thomas Jefferson's quotes, he's had a bunch, but Thomas Jefferson was a patriot and believed in separating us from England. And some of his quotes are, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants." And he also felt that when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. Thomas Jefferson was big in believing that the federal government didn't need and shouldn't have the powers that it does have to this day, and that the state should have the overall powers. Thank you for allowing me to present this. Again, my name is Brandon Davies, and this is for History 131 with Miss Sherry Montcastle.